Yeah, savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get!
Sean Diddy Combs was born in Harlem, New York in 1969. His childhood was marked by tragedy at an early age. His father, a U.S. Air Force veteran, was also linked to Frank Lucas, one of New York's most infamous drug lords. When Sean was just 2 years old, his father was murdered in a drug-related incident, leaving his mother to raise him alone. Sean's mother worked as a teaching assistant, and despite the challenges, she ensured Sean had a stable upbringing. Sean grew up with a strong ambition to make something of himself, eventually attending Howard University to study business. Though he dropped out to pursue his music career, he later returned in 2014 to accept an honorary degree, delivering a commencement speech that would inspire many.
Successes come from some of my biggest failures. In the early 90s, when my friends were graduating from Howard, I got fired from that first job that I got with Andre Harrell.
Years later, however, this degree would be revoked as allegations against him came to light. In 1990, Sean Puffy Combs began his journey in the music industry as an unpaid intern at Uptown Records.
Yeah, savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
A role that would eventually launch him to superstardom. Uptown Records was a label known for its cutting-edge approach to R&B and hip-hop, and Sean quickly made his mark. His energy, ambition, and ability to spot talent helped him rise rapidly through the ranks. He was not just an intern, he was a force of nature, constantly hustling and making himself indispensable. He learned the inner workings of the music business from the ground up, observing how records were produced, marketed, and sold. Sean's keen eye for talent and his unrelenting drive soon caught the attention of Uptown executives. By the early 1990s, Sean had established himself as one of the most promising young figures in the industry. He became known for his ability to create buzz around artists and events. His reputation as a party planner was unmatched, and his events became legendary for their star-studded guest lists and electric energy. These parties were not just celebrations, they were strategic networking events that cemented Sean's place in the music industry. However, his penchant for throwing grand events would also lead to early controversy. In 1991, Sean organized a charity basketball game at City College of New York. The event was intended to raise money for AIDS awareness, but it ended in tragedy. The venue was filled beyond capacity, and the overwhelming crowd led to a stampede that unalived 9 people and injured dozens more. The incident was a sobering moment for Sean and a dark mark on his early career. Despite the tragedy, he pressed forward, determined not to let this setback define him. By 1993, Sean had become an indispensable part of Uptown Records, but his assertive nature and ambitious ideas began to clash with the leadership. His bold vision for the label's direction did not align with the more conservative approach of his superiors. This conflict ultimately led to his dismissal from the company. For many, being fired from such a prestigious position would have been a devastating blow, but for Sean, it was a catalyst for reinvention. That same year, he founded Bad Boy Records, a label that would revolutionize the hip-hop industry. Sean was not just building a record label, he was crafting a brand. Bad Boy became synonymous with a new era of hip-hop. Flashy, bold, and unapologetically commercial. Sean's first major signing was Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious Big. At the time, Wallace was an unknown rapper from Brooklyn, but Sean saw something special in him. Under Sean's guidance, the Notorious Big quickly rose to prominence, releasing hit singles and albums that would define a generation. Sean didn't just manage the Notorious B.I.G., he collaborated with him, using his talent for promotion and production to elevate Bad Boy Records. Together, they created a string of hits that dominated the airwaves. The success of artists like the Notorious B.I.G. and Faith Evans established Bad Boy Records as a powerhouse in the music industry. The label became known for its distinct sound, a blend of gritty East Coast rap and polished production. As Bad Boy Records flourished, so did Sean's persona. He adopted the name Puff Daddy, and began to step into the spotlight as an artist in his own right. He was not content to remain behind the scenes. He wanted to be a star. In 1997, he released his debut single, Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, which climbed to the top of the charts. That same year, tragedy struck when the notorious B.I.G. was unalived in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles. The loss was a devastating blow to Sean personally and professionally. In the aftermath of Biggie's death, Sean released the single I'll Be Missing You, a heartfelt tribute to his friend and collaborator. The song, which featured Faith Evans and 112, became an anthem of grief and resilience. It topped the charts worldwide and earned Sean his first Grammy Award. Later that year, he released his debut album, No Way Out, which solidified his place as a major figure in hip-hop. Sean's rise to fame was meteoric, but it was not without challenges. He navigated the competitive world of music with a combination of talent, charisma, and sheer determination. His ability to adapt and innovate set him apart from his peers. By the late 1990s, Sean Puff Daddy Combs was more than just a music producer. He was a cultural icon, a trendsetter, and the face of a new era in entertainment. However, even as he reached the pinnacle of success, the seeds of future controversies were already being sown. As Sean Puffy Combs' fame grew, so did the controversies that seemed to follow him at every turn. By the late 1990s, he was no longer just a music producer or an artist. He was a full-fledged celebrity whose every move was scrutinized by the public and the media. While his professional life was thriving, his personal life and behavior began to spark headlines, many of which hinted at a darker side to his success. One of the first major incidents occurred in 1999 when Sean was charged with assaulting Steve Stout, a record executive. The conflict stemmed from a music video that included a crucifixion scene Sean had not approved. In a fit of anger, Sean reportedly stormed into Stout's office and struck him with a champagne bottle, causing injuries. This act of violence resulted in a court case, and Sean was ordered to attend anger management classes. The incident painted a troubling picture of a man who, despite his polished public persona, struggled to control his temper. Later that same year, Sean was involved in a much more serious altercation that would dominate the headlines for months. While attending a nightclub with his then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, an argument broke out involving Sean and a group of other patrons. The situation escalated when gunfire erupted inside the club. The incident left 3 people injured and led to Sean's arrest on charges of illegal weapons possession and bribery. Prosecutors accused Sean of trying to convince his driver to claim ownership of a gun found in their vehicle. The trial became a media circus, with Sean's high-profile relationship with Lopez adding to the public fascination. Sean maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings, and in the end, he was acquitted of all charges. However, his associate, rapper Shine, was convicted of assault and served 10 years in prison. The nightclub shooting left a lasting stain on Sean's reputation and marked the beginning of a pattern where those around him often bore the consequences of his actions. As Sean entered the new millennium, his legal troubles continued to mount. In 2001, television host Roger Mills filed a lawsuit against him, alleging that Sean's entourage assaulted him on Sean's orders after an interview question about the notorious B.I.G.S. unaliving. The case highlighted Sean's reputation for maintaining tight control over his public image and his perceived tendency to react aggressively to perceived slights. Though the lawsuit was settled out of court, it added to the growing perception of Sean as a man who wielded his power with little regard for the consequences. In the following years, allegations of misconduct and violence began to accumulate. Sean's name was frequently associated with lawsuits and out-of-court settlements. In 2003, his former business partner Kirk Burrows accused Sean of threatening violence to force him to relinquish shares in Bad Boy Records. Around the same time, Sean was accused of physically assaulting a man and 2 women at an Oscars after-party. According to the allegations, Sean punched one individual, pushed another, and spat on a woman during an altercation. Though Sean denied the claims, he opted to settle the matter privately. Even Sean's business ventures were not free from controversy. His clothing brand, Sean John, faced backlash when reports emerged about unfair labor practices in its factories. Workers complained of long hours, low wages, and poor conditions. Further investigations revealed that some of the brand's garments were made using genuine raccoon dog fur, despite being advertised as synthetic. These revelations tarnished Sean's image as a savvy and socially conscious entrepreneur. Amid these legal battles and public controversies, Sean continued to reinvent himself. He changed his stage name multiple times, from Puff Daddy to P. Diddy and later simply Diddy. Each name change seemed like an attempt to shed the weight of his past and present himself in a new light. However, the controversies followed him regardless of what name he used. One of the most shocking allegations emerged in 2017 when Sean's former personal chef, Cindy Rueda, filed a lawsuit against him. She claimed she had been subjected to harassment while working long, grueling hours at his home. Rueda alleged that she was forced to serve meals during and after Sean's encounters, and that she was often humiliated in the process. While Sean's legal team dismissed the claims as baseless, the lawsuit added to a growing narrative of mistreatment and misconduct behind the scenes. By the late 2010s, Sean's reputation was deeply polarized. To some, he remained a groundbreaking artist and entrepreneur who had helped shape modern hip-hop and built an empire from the ground up. To others, he was a man whose success was tainted by a history of aggression, exploitation, and questionable ethics. As Sean entered the 2020s, these controversies would only intensify, culminating in a series of allegations that would threaten to dismantle everything he had built. Despite his attempts to portray himself as a reformed and evolved figure, the shadows of his past loomed larger than ever. In the early 2000s, Sean rebranded himself as P. Diddy and expanded his empire beyond music. He launched the clothing brand Sean John, which won several awards but faced criticism for using unfair labor practices and real animal fur. Sean also ventured into acting, with roles in films like Monsters Ball and Get Him to the Greek. He partnered with major brands, becoming the face of Ciroc Vodka and co-founding the TV network Revoked. Despite his success, allegations of misconduct continued to surface, painting a troubling picture behind the scenes. By 2023, Sean Diddy Combs was a household name with decades of success in the music and entertainment industry. Known for his charisma, business acumen, and cultural influence, Sean seemed to embody the American dream. Yet, behind the public persona of a mogul and artist lay a series of troubling allegations that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The cracks in Sean's legacy began to show more visibly that year, with the release of his fifth studio album, The Love Album, Off the Grid. Despite featuring high-profile collaborations with artists like Justin Bieber, John Legend, and The Weeknd, the album failed to recapture the critical and commercial success of his earlier work. Public interest in Sean's music seemed to be waning, but the headlines he would make next would have nothing to do with his artistry. In November 2023, Cassie Ventura, Sean's former partner of over a decade, filed a civil lawsuit against him. Cassie's allegations were extensive and deeply disturbing. She claimed that throughout their relationship, Sean had subjected her to physical abuse, SA, and coercive control. She detailed incidents where he allegedly forced her into situations with male workers while he watched and physically harmed her when she resisted. Among the most shocking claims was that Sean had blown up the car of rapper Kid Cudi in 2012 as an act of intimidation while Cassie was dating him. These allegations painted a horrifying picture of abuse and control that spanned years. The lawsuit was a tipping point. While Sean initially denied the accusations, public scrutiny grew as more details emerged. Within the same week, 2 more women came forward, each filing separate lawsuits alleging similar patterns of SA and blackmail. These claims included accusations of revenge, inappropriate videos, and threats to silence victims. The allegations shocked the entertainment industry and began to dismantle the image Sean had carefully cultivated over decades. By December, yet another lawsuit was filed, adding to the mounting evidence against him. Sean continued to deny all wrongdoing, but the flood of accusations suggested a long history of abusive behavior. The fallout escalated in early 2024 when police raided several of Sean's properties as part of an ongoing investigation. Authorities seized computers, documents, and other items believed to be connected to the allegations. These raids were accompanied by the release of CCTV footage that further implicated Sean. The footage, obtained by CNN, showed him violently kicking and beating Cassie in a hotel corridor and lobby. The video left little room for interpretation and caused widespread outrage. For many, it was irrefutable evidence of the abusive behavior Cassie and others had described. The legal pressure on Sean continued to build. In February 2024, yet another former associate came forward, alleging that Sean had coerced him into arranging encounters with workers under threat of violence. In April, Sean's son Christian was named alongside his father in a lawsuit accusing them both of misconduct and an attempted cover-up. Sean's attempts to settle the cases out of court reportedly included offers of large sums of money, but many of the claimants refused to remain silent. The scale of the allegations became impossible to ignore. By September 2024, Sean was formally arrested and charged with a litany of crimes, including racketeering, trafficking, and coercion. Prosecutors argued that Sean had used his wealth, power, and influence to exploit and silence his victims. The charges painted a grim picture of a man who had built an empire, not just through talent and ambition, but also through manipulation and abuse. Sean pleaded not guilty to all charges, but his request for a $50 million bail was denied. The court deemed him a flight risk and expressed concern that he might intimidate or harm witnesses if released. As the case moved forward, the entertainment world grappled with the fallout. Sean's once loyal supporters began to distance themselves, and his business ventures suffered significant setbacks. Brands and collaborators that had once celebrated their association with him now sought to sever ties. The man who had once been the face of hip-hop's glamour and success was now a symbol of its darkest underbelly. Sean's arrest marked a dramatic turning point in his life and career. It was not just the end of his reign as a music mogul, but also a moment of reckoning for an industry that had long turned a blind eye to the behavior of powerful figures. The case against him continued to grow, with more witnesses and victims stepping forward. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Sean faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. The story of Sean Diddy Combs' fall is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and privilege. For years, he had seemed untouchable, his fame and wealth shielding him from accountability. But in the end, the truth caught up with him. The man who once dominated the world of music and business now stands accused of crimes that could erase his legacy entirely. His fall from grace is not just a personal tragedy, but a reminder of how quickly success can unravel when built on a foundation of exploitation and abuse. In September 2024, Sean Diddy Combs faced the culmination of years of accusations, lawsuits, and investigations. His arrest marked a turning point not only in his personal life, but also in the broader conversation around power, abuse, and accountability in the entertainment industry. After decades of enjoying immense wealth, fame, and influence, Sean now found himself in handcuffs, facing some of the most severe criminal charges imaginable. The arrest took place in New York on September 16, 2024, following months of investigations into allegations of SAA, racketeering, and trafficking. The charges against Sean were extensive and painted a grim picture of his alleged actions over the years. According to the indictment, Sean had used his wealth, status, and vast business empire to exploit vulnerable individuals, often through intimidation, coercion, and manipulation. The accusations suggested a pattern of abuse that spanned decades, involving multiple victims and various methods of control. The decision to arrest Sean followed a series of police raids on his properties earlier in the year. In March 2024, authorities had raided several of his residences, including his $48 million Miami mansion. During these raids, investigators reportedly seized a wealth of evidence, including electronic devices, documents, and surveillance footage. This evidence, combined with testimony from victims and witnesses, formed the basis of the charges against him. Prosecutors argued that Sean had operated a criminal network that leveraged his entertainment empire to facilitate and cover up his crimes. When Sean appeared in court the day after his arrest, he pled not guilty to all charges. His legal team sought to secure his release on bail, offering a staggering $50 million as a guarantee. However, the judge denied the request, citing concerns that Sean posed a significant risk of intimidating witnesses and obstructing justice. This decision underscored the gravity of the case and the court's belief that Sean's wealth and influence could be used to interfere with the proceedings. The indictment against Sean detailed a disturbing pattern of behavior. Prosecutors alleged that he had trafficked women across state lines for ES purposes, often using threats and violence to control his victims. The charges also included allegations of racketeering, with prosecutors claiming that Sean had used his business operations to facilitate and profit from illegal activities. These accusations suggested a calculated and organized effort to exploit vulnerable individuals, casting a shadow over Sean's public persona as a successful businessman and philanthropist. One of the most shocking aspects of the case was the inclusion of Sean's son, Christian, in one of the lawsuits. The lawsuit alleged that both Sean and Christian had been involved in an incident of AA's misconduct and had attempted to cover it up by offering a financial settlement to the victim. This revelation added another layer of complexity to the case, raising questions about the extent of Sean's influence and the environment he had created within his inner circle. As the case unfolded, the public reaction was one of shock and outrage. Sean's arrest and the charges against him dominated headlines, sparking debates about accountability in the entertainment industry. Many of Sean's former collaborators and business partners distanced themselves from him, with brands and companies severing ties to avoid being associated with the scandal. Fans who had once admired his music and entrepreneurial spirit now grapple with the disturbing allegations against him. The legal proceedings were expected to be lengthy and complex, with both sides preparing for what promised to be a high-profile trial. Prosecutors emphasized the scale of Sean's alleged crimes, describing him as a man who had used his position of power to exploit and harm others. Sean's defense team, on the other hand, sought to portray him as a victim of false accusations, arguing that the allegations were part of a coordinated effort to bring him down. Despite his legal team's efforts, the evidence against Sean continued to mount. The release of CCTV footage earlier in the year, which showed him physically assaulting Cassie Ventura in a hotel corridor, had already damaged his reputation. Now, with additional testimony and evidence emerging, the case against him appeared increasingly damning. Sean's arrest marked a dramatic fall from grace for a man who had once been celebrated as a pioneer in the music and entertainment industry. For years, he had been seen as a symbol of success, resilience, and innovation. Now, he faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. The charges against him not only threatened to destroy his legacy, but also raised broader questions about the culture of silence and complicity that had allowed him to operate unchecked for so long. As the trial approached, the stakes were enormous. For Sean, the outcome would determine whether he could maintain his innocence or face decades behind bars. For his victims, it represented an opportunity to seek justice and hold him accountable for the harm he had caused. And for the entertainment industry, it served as a stark reminder of the need for accountability and reform. The case of Sean Diddy Combs was not just a legal battle, it was a reckoning for an industry that had long been plagued by abuse and exploitation. Sean Diddy Combs' journey from a young man with big dreams to a global music icon is one of immense highs and devastating lows. His story is now overshadowed by allegations of abuse, manipulation, and criminal behavior. The legal battles ahead will determine the final chapter of a life that once seemed untouchable. For now, Sean's legacy remains deeply stained, a cautionary tale of power, privilege, and the consequences of unchecked ambition.